While my brother got the top floor and daily compliments, I was kept in the basement for everyone's safety. When they needed a place to stay, I pointed them to the stairs and shut the door. The ceiling in the basement was 6 inches lower than my head. That's the first thing I remember. Not the cold. Not the mildew smell. Not the clanging of pipes whenever someone upstairs flushed the toilet. Just that every time I stood up straight, something told me to duck. And over time I did. Always. My brother's room was upstairs. Top floor. 2 windows. Posters, fresh paint, a lamp that dimmed with a remote. I had concrete walls and an outlet that sparked if you used both plugs. He had a closet big enough to sleep in. I had a curtain, no door, no lock. They said it was for the best. Said I needed space. Said I was sensitive to light, to noise, to stimulation. At 7, I didn't know what sensitive meant, but I learned that it meant separate. It meant, not at the dinner table tonight. He'll eat in the basement, it's calmer. We'll open gifts later, let him rest. One year, my aunt visited and asked where my room was. I remember Mom smiling and saying, "Oh, we let him stay downstairs. It's more comfortable for him." I remember standing just out of view, listening. I remember not moving. Not breathing. Afraid even my presence would undo the illusion. There was no lock on the basement door. Just a hook from the inside. But once I was down there, it didn't matter. The house functioned around me. Above me. Through me. I heard every laugh. Every door slam. Every sentence not meant for my ears. They were loudest when they forgot I could hear them. My brother Ethan was the kind of kid people called a handful with a smile. He got away with everything. Broke vases? He's energetic. Skipped homework? He's thinking outside the box. Swore at teachers? Gifted minds get bored easily. Me? If I didn't say good morning loud enough, it was a sign I was withdrawing again. At 12, he threw a basketball through the kitchen window. They blamed the neighbors. At 14, he broke into Dad's liquor cabinet. They said it was a phase. At 16, he crashed Dad's car. They told me not to bring it up, he feels bad enough already. I never mentioned it. I'd learned by then that silence was safer than truth. My room flooded once during a storm. I moved the mattress to the stairs and sat on it, soaking wet. No one came down. Later, Mom said, "You should have called out." I had. Twice. Every time I tried to express how I felt, they told me I was overreacting. When I cried, they said I was too emotional. When I didn't cry, they said I was shutting down. Eventually, I stopped trying to decode the rules. I just listened. Observed. Learned to be small. And in that basement, I became very good at disappearing. School was no better. Ethan was popular. Confident. Always surrounded by noise. I was the kid people forgot was in class. Sometimes I'd raise my hand just to prove I existed. No one called on me. I wasn't angry. Just used to it. Teachers told my parents I was bright but distant. They agreed. Said I'd always been off. They didn't mean it cruelly. They said it like it was just one of those things. Like freckles or flat feet. An unfortunate trait you learn to work around. One day in high school, I came upstairs during dinner by mistake. I'd lost track of time. Ethan was laughing at something. Dad looked up and said, "Thought you were staying downstairs tonight." I froze. Mom smiled too wide. "It's okay. He can sit for a minute." Ethan rolled his eyes. As long as he doesn't freak out again. No one corrected him. No one said, "That's not fair." So I turned around and went back down the stairs. Dinner smelled like roasted chicken. In the basement, I opened a can of cold beans. Years blurred. Ethan got louder. I got quieter. He brought friends home, girlfriends, trophies. I brought books. I read everything. Psychology. History. Architecture. Anything that taught me about worlds with structure, balance, logic. The opposite of what I lived in. When I turned 18, I didn't get a cake. They forgot or pretended to. A week later, Mom gave me a card with a $10 bill inside. Said, "Sorry, things have been hectic." Ethan's birthday had a backyard party. Catering. A new bike. I watched from the basement window. Saw the candles. Heard the music. Then closed the curtain. And packed a bag. The next morning, I left before sunrise. Didn't say goodbye. Didn't leave a note. No one stopped me. No one followed. For the first time, I saw the house from the outside. It looked smaller. Much smaller. I found a job washing dishes. Rented a room with a real door. No basement. No stairs. No pipes above my head. Just walls. A lock. A small window that let in the morning light. I slept on the floor for the first week, not out of necessity but out of habit. It took time to believe I could choose where I laid my head. I didn't speak to my parents for a long time. They didn't reach out. Neither did Ethan. Maybe they didn't notice I was gone. Maybe that was the final lesson. You weren't missing. You were misplaced. And no one was looking to fix it. But I did. I fixed it. Quietly. Slowly. I built a life above ground. My first rented room had nothing but a mattress on the floor and a broken ceiling fan. But there were no stairs above me. No whispers through the vents. No footsteps walking around on my ceiling while I tried to remember I existed. It was quiet. But this time, the quiet wasn't punishment. It was peace. I found a job washing dishes at a diner that never closed. Night shifts. No customers after midnight. No coworkers who asked questions. I liked it that way. I liked the rhythm of water, the clatter of plates, the steam rising from a deep sink. It was repetitive, yes. But it was clean. Predictable. And no one told me to smile. I walked home at 3 a.m. every morning. Headphones in. Hood up. Just me and the hum of empty streets. I started saving every dollar I could. Not for anything specific. Just because I finally could. I didn't call my parents. They didn't call me. Not for birthdays. Not for holidays. I figured they told people I was off finding myself or taking time. They were always good at rewriting stories. Especially the parts where they might have been wrong. At the diner, I kept my head down and worked hard. After a year, they let me prep vegetables. 6 months later, I moved to line cook. It wasn't glamorous, but I liked the focus. The clarity. The rules made sense. If you burned it, you tossed it. If you dropped it, you cleaned it up. No guessing. No hidden rules. Just heat, knives, and honesty. I took GED classes on the side. Late nights turned into early mornings. I'd leave work, grab coffee, and head straight to class. I didn't talk much there either. But I listened. I watched. And slowly, I remembered how much I liked learning. It took 2 years, but I passed everything. No one clapped. No one took pictures. But I did buy myself a slice of cake. Just one. Sat in the park and ate it in silence. It tasted like something I couldn't name at the time. Maybe pride. Maybe proof. I moved into a studio apartment with peeling paint and crooked blinds. But it had a window. A real one. With sunlight that touched my face in the morning. That was enough. I taught myself how to build furniture from scraps. Bookshelves. Tables. A headboard. Things that stayed where I put them. Things I didn't have to ask permission to use. I worked, read, saved. I learned to invest. Started taking free courses online. And I stayed quiet. But this time it wasn't out of fear. It was because I was listening not to them anymore, but to myself. Once I saw a family at the diner. A mom, dad, and 2 sons. The younger one was silent. Didn't touch his food. Just sat there, twisting a napkin in his lap. No one asked him anything. The older brother got all the attention. I brought their check to the table and caught the kid's eye for half a second. He didn't smile. Neither did I. But I nodded. He nodded back. That was enough. Years passed like that. Quiet. Steady. Mine. I didn't need anyone to see me. I just needed to know I was no longer hiding. One day I got a letter from the bank. I had enough saved for a down payment. It wasn't a big house. But it was mine. A small place on a quiet street. 3 rooms. 1 upstairs. 1 on the main floor. And yes, a basement. Dry. Clean. With its own light switch. I stood there the day I got the keys. Looked down the stairs. Felt a chill. And then closed the door. I didn't furnish the basement. Didn't even step down there for months. I left it as it was. Not because I feared it. But because it didn't belong to me anymore. The upstairs bedroom had tall windows and a ceiling fan that worked. I slept there. Spread out. Took up space. No footsteps above me. No whispered apologies. No curfews set by people who claimed it was for my safety. Just air. And light. And silence that didn't accuse. That was the year Ethan showed up in the news. Not in a big way, just a local article. He crashed his 3rd car. No injuries. No jail time. Just a quote from Mom. He's been through a lot. People don't understand him. I didn't feel anything. Not anger. Not pity. Just distance. Like I was reading about a stranger. That night, I sat by the window and tried to remember the last conversation I had with them. Really remember it. The sound of their voices. I couldn't. I remember their shoes. Their footsteps. The way light used to spill under the basement door. But not their voices. That felt right. The phone didn't ring on my birthday that year. No card. No email. I didn't expect one. Instead, I made pasta from scratch. A skill I taught myself from a video. I ate it alone. At a table I built. In a home that was quiet by design. And I was full. I didn't feel like I had escaped. There was no triumphant music. Just a door I walked through and didn't look back. I wasn't someone who needed rescue. I was someone who had finally learned to stop knocking on locked doors. The call came on a Thursday. I saw the name flash across my screen and just stared at it. Not because I was surprised, but because I wasn't. It had been years. No texts. No birthdays. No, how have you been? Just silence. And now this. I let it go to voicemail. Waited 10 minutes. Then played the message on speaker while I boiled water for tea. Hi, it's Mom. I hope this number still works. I don't really know what to say except we're not in a good place right now. The house, we lost it. Michael's been going through something and we just... Pause. We're looking for somewhere to stay. Just for a little while. Until we figure things out. I know it's been a long time, but you've always been stable. We could really use your help. She hung up without saying goodbye. I stood there in the kitchen holding the spoon, hearing the whistle of the kettle. Not angry. Not heartbroken. Just aware. Of the timing. Of the framing. Of the language that never changed. We lost the house. Michael's going through something. You've always been stable. No mention of what I went through. No mention of 6 years underground. No mention of who I had to become just to be able to sit here now, alone, in peace. I stirred my tea. Sat by the window. Watched the rain collect in the gutter. Let the silence settle. The next day, another call. Then a text. We're in the area. Just looking for a place to land. Not asking for much. Just warmth. Safety. We know you understand. They had no idea how much I did. I texted back 4 words. There's space. Downstairs. No greeting. No explanation. No invitation into anything more. Just the facts. 2 hours later, they were parked in my driveway. I watched through the blinds as the car idled. Rain still falling. Mom in the passenger seat looking down at her phone. Dad outside unloading bags. Trash bags. Plastic totes. A suitcase held together with duct tape. Michael sat in the back seat, hood pulled up, face turned toward the window. He didn't look up once. I waited until they reached the porch. Then opened the door. No smile. Just a nod. And a gesture toward the side of the house. Toward the stairs leading down. Mom blinked. Is this? I didn't answer. Just stepped back. Let the silence hold it. Dad followed my gaze. The basement. Still nothing. Just the sound of water dripping from the eaves and the low rumble of their disappointment, something they didn't quite know how to name yet. I stepped outside. Walked past them. Unlocked the basement door. Flipped the switch. The bulb flickered once, then stayed on. The room was dry. Empty. Cold. Concrete floor. No furniture. But no mold. No leaks. No exposed wires. Better than what I had. And they knew it. They shuffled past me one by one, carrying their bags down the stairs I once took barefoot. No one said thank you. No one said sorry. No one said anything. I closed the door behind them. No slam. No lock. Just a quiet click. That night I made dinner for one. A small tray of roasted vegetables. Herb chicken. A glass of wine. I ate slowly. Took my time. Watched the news. Washed the dishes. Fed the cat. They didn't knock. And I didn't check in. Around midnight, I turned off the lights and walked upstairs. My room had clean sheets, soft light, warmth. The house was still. The basement was quieter. Day 2. They stayed below. I heard muffled steps. Voices. A cough. No texts. No notes. No apology. I made breakfast. Ate it alone. Went to work. Came home. The basement light was on. I didn't ask why. On the 3rd day, I found an envelope on the kitchen counter. No name. No return address. Inside, a folded note. We appreciate the space. It's not ideal. But it'll do. Just for now. I laughed. Just once. Not bitter. Just clear. That evening, I turned off the basement light from the circuit breaker. Just to remind myself, this is my house. They stayed for 4 nights. Not long by most standards. But long enough. Long enough for the air in the house to shift. Long enough to notice how carefully they walked. How quiet they'd become. Felt familiar, only reversed. The first 2 days I didn't see them. I left early. Came home late. Ate upstairs. Cooked small meals I didn't share. I wasn't avoiding them. I was choosing myself. Sometimes I stood by the window, watching the basement light through the narrow side window. It would flick on just after sunset. Flick off around midnight. I never asked what they were doing down there. They never asked for more. No hot meals. No access to the main floor. No conversation. Just space. Exactly what they once gave me. The basement had no thermostat. No rugs. No warmth. But it had a door. And that was more than I had for 6 years. On the third day, I heard them moving upstairs. Footsteps. Hesitant. I was at the kitchen table, reading. I didn't get up. Didn't say anything. Just listened. Eventually, the steps turned back. They didn't knock. Didn't try the doorknob. That silence said more than an apology ever could. That night, I took a walk. The sky was overcast. Wind brushing through the trees like a whisper. I passed by houses with porch lights on. Families eating dinner inside. Laughter. Clinking of silverware. Movement. None of it made me feel jealous. Only still. Because now, finally, I understood. I wasn't missing anything. I never had. When I returned, the basement light was off. The front of the house quiet. A single bag sat by the side door, taped shut, sagging silent. By morning, they were gone. I found a note on the kitchen counter. Slid just past the edge. We're leaving. We'll figure things out. Thank you for what you gave. No signature. No names. No mention of the years I spent beneath their feet. No ownership of the version of me they built and buried. Just a thin sheet of paper with a few safe words that cost nothing to write. I read it once. Then again. Then folded it carefully and slid it into the back of a drawer. Not to keep it. Just to know where it lived. And that it didn't live in me. I cleaned the basement that weekend. Mopped. Aired it out. Put away the makeshift bedding. Stacked their empty food wrappers into the bin. Bagged them. Took my time. I moved quietly, not to be polite, but because the silence was now mine. It answered to me. When I was done, I stood in the doorway and stared into the empty room. The same walls. Same floor. Same overhead bulb that buzzed faintly if you left it on too long. But something was different. Me. I wasn't down there anymore. I wasn't waiting at the top of the stairs for someone to let me come up. Now I held the door. I replaced the old lock with a newer one. Polished. Strong. Clean key. Not out of fear they'd return. But because I wanted the choice. The power to say yes or no. Something I was never given back then. And never giving up now. Days passed. No messages. No follow-ups. No requests for more. And I realized. They'd left with the same silence they once gave me. But this time it didn't feel cruel. It felt accurate. The house began to feel like mine again. Room by room. I repainted the hallway. Changed out the curtains. Donated half my clothes and bought new ones that actually fit the person I'd become. I even bought plants, something I never trusted myself to care for before. They lived. Thrived. Even. And every time I watered them, I smiled. Because someone once told me I couldn't even care for myself. Turns out they were wrong. I started opening windows more. Letting light in. Letting sound out. The street noise didn't bother me like it used to. I wasn't hiding anymore. One day, I saw a neighbor pause on their walk. They glanced at the house. Smiled. Nodded at me through the open window. I nodded back. No words. Just two people who existed in the same sunlight. That was enough. Weeks later I got a letter. Plain envelope. No return address. Inside a photo. Me and my brother ages ago. At a birthday party I barely remembered. He had cake on his face. I had a bruise on my chin. The message on the back was in my mother's handwriting. We should have protected both of you. That was all. No apology. No explanation. Just 7 words. I sat with that sentence for a long time. Then placed the photo face down in the drawer beside the note. Not out of anger. Out of completion. Now I live quietly. Peacefully. I plant herbs by the kitchen window. Bake bread on Sundays. Read books from start to finish. Not to escape, but because I finally have space to stay present. People ask sometimes if I talk to my family. Not anymore, I say. But I remember them. And I do. I remember the basement. The way the light pooled at the bottom of the stairs. The way footsteps always sounded heavier when you knew they weren't meant for you. But I don't relive it. Because now the only steps in this house are mine. I don't tell the story often. Not because I'm ashamed, but because it no longer owns me. It shaped me, yes. But now? Now I shape myself. And if they ever come back? If they ever knock again? I know what I'll say. That door's closed. The upstairs is full. And I don't live below anymore.